Rolling.
Take two. What's DIY mean to you?
DIY, do it yourself, means answer your own damn questions, live your own damn life. To me, it means nobody falls off the conveyor belt. It means you have to stand up and jump, and you have to embrace the falling of life. That's what it means. It means, I think, survival. It means you'll have a career.
This is a film about artists who exemplify and embody the DIY, or do-it-yourself, ethic. We will profile a unique group of icons and unknowns working in various media, including print, film, graphic art, cartoon art, dance, and music. The 36 interviewees are uniquely American artists who operate outside of any studio system, are beholden to none, and produce influential, quality art regardless of a continuous paycheck. Most of them are able to make a somewhat comfortable wage at their art. Some are just scraping by, a few are rich. Many have been major influences on modern culture. However, they all have a common denominator. The need to make art is their biggest reason to get up each morning. The DIY movement has its roots in the punk rock culture of the mid-70s. Unable to garnish corporate support, many began working around the culture industry to invent new channels of creative dissemination. They put on their own concerts, made their own films, started tiny but influential record labels out of their basements, and used their bedrooms to do paste-up for hand-Xeroxed fanzines to review and promote each other. The DIY I think I can ethic exists today, driving everything from garage bands to the largest software companies in the world. We will document this spirit in these modern mavericks as they strive to survive, to create, and to form communities against a backdrop of indifference. Why do you do art?
I do art because it's something that my heart feels, something that changes with how I feel, changes with what the world around me feels like, and it's one of the few things in the world that seemed like it called to me in any way.
Why do I do music? I don't think that the why ever enters into it. So that's probably the reason. It's beyond why. It just is what I do. And I've never understood. People ask me, so how did you decide to do music? I never decided to do music. And I don't think of myself a musician either. I just end up, I wake up, I do something. And this is what I do. And this is what has seemed like the most natural thing to do.
I was hoping to do this interview with my kid in the photo, but it was impossible. But the kid really is what drives me. He's, feeding, and this is him. Can this work? Yeah. See, that's mini me. That's what drives me. Before he was born, I don't know what was driving me. I guess it was pursuit of something, but I'm not really sure what it is. But now it's like providing for my family drives me.
I think anyone would be lying to you if they said there wasn't an ego involved in this, you know? I think they're full of shit, you know? Yeah, sure, it's the ego, but, you know, I mean, I work so hard on what I do, and every spare second I have, I'm doing it, and now that I'm not bartending, I'm really doing it, but I just really want to share it, you know? I don't want to just do it and have it sit in my house.
It's really the only thing I know how to do, honestly. It's pretty hopeless. Gotta make stuff, or I get really depressed. If I don't make stuff, I get very, very, like, can't function. So with this piece, what I did was I sat in a big wad of clay, and I cast my ass in plaster.
And I used to love Davy Crockett, and I'd wear, like, the buckskin outfit. We'd go to this Glen Echo, this park, and there would be a Davy Crockett dude, you know, and he'd go around and play the banjo and sing the song. So when he came to our little area, I knew the Davy Crockett theme song, so I sang it with him. He goes, "Would you mind if I took him around with me for a while?" Nowadays, no way. I mean, I'm terrified. But for me, I'm performing too cool. So I went around with him, you know, for an hour or so and sang the song with him. I go, uh-oh, that's it. I'm hooked, and that's what got me going. And then I remember just being a kid laying in bed, and, you know, I'm like 10 years old or 12, and going, oh man, I don't want to go to college, I don't want to get a job, I don't want to have family, I don't want kids. I just can't do that. Even then I knew I didn't want to do that. And I was always worried what would happen and how it would come to be that I wouldn't have to be a normal person.
To some degree, I think being involved with the punk rock scene, or like, that is actually an area where I feel like it's full of deviants, people who are kind of challenging all sorts of conventional thinking. So to the degree that my interest in music, or my interest in playing music, has sort of brought me into this kind of underground world, that is the reason I do it, because it's where I feel comfortable. I feel like it's where I can actually feel like I've accomplished something.
But my job is pretty good. I mean, I did pick this job because I thought it would be cool if I was 60 years old to have young women or men or whatever come over to my house and take their clothes off. I thought that would be really funny. Seriously, that was one of the considerations when I went into this field.
Well, at first, you know, my art was my music, and then later on I just ventured into doing artwork, but and the art that I do, the Demonica Erotica series, is, you know, what people sometimes think I just do for shock value, but basically it's just what I just love to do, because I've been doing it, you know, I've been drawing since I was a baby.
Why'd you start playing punk rock?
Because I just quit doing drugs and I had a whole bunch of extra energy, and I was drinking lots of espresso and eating lots of pastries and riding my bike every day, and I just couldn't help but do it.
What would you do if you weren't playing music?
That's a tough question, yeah. 'Cause I don't really know. I'm kind of all consumed by music.
When I first started seeing bands, I realized I can play. So it was never like I thought like, oh, I'm going to be in a band. It was sort of like, well, I can play, so let's get together and play some music, and then let's write a song, or let's, you know, it was all very momentary, very process oriented or whatever, which is exactly the way I think about things in life.
I had this grandmother who wouldn't shut up. She talked all the time, right? Like she never stopped talking, and she would talk to herself, she would talk to you, she would listen to you, but then she would talk. And anything that came to mind, she would have to say it. And I think that that's the urge to write, is like the urge to communicate and be alone at the same time. But the need to get everything that's in your head out of your head, you know, either by saying it or by writing it down, you know, I think it's really similar. You know, so rather than making everybody crazy and, you know, and talking too much and telling them everything that I'm thinking, I just write it all down and I just show them the good stuff.
The ultimate goal is freedom, and that's what art and music and writing and literature and painting, ultimately, that's what we look for. When we look to someone else, we look for them to unlatch this key, to open up this door that we can go to, and for that second, that moment of looking into that painting, of hearing that one note, finding this freedom that we so long as individuals to feel.
We're doing it so we can live.
you know, it's like, well, why are we doing this? We're not just doing it and then, yay, we accomplished, we ran the buses on time and now we're dead. Like, you know, unless you're the bus driver that's on the way that says hi to everybody and makes it a positive thing, they're adding some art to you can add art to being a bus driver, you can add art to just about anything, and it's basically it's taking whatever life is and making it better, and making, you know, expressing this like really deep felt core of our lives. And if you don't have that, if I don't have that, it's bleak, you know, everything, there's nothing else.
I began to realize that it was something that I could do, and it was something that kept me sane and focused, whereas I lacked focus in every other category. So yeah, I've always done art. I've always painted and drawn, created.
I perform because I have to. I started performing on the stage when I was with this person when I was about 8 years old. So I think that I came from a really working poor family, and being on a stage and performing always somehow gave me a new perspective on myself, and this idea that there weren't any limitations or boundaries when I was having this performance dialogue with people, and it was the truth of the emotion, the situation that I wanted to convey, and I couldn't find that in my daily life, but I could find that and embody that and create that dialogue when I was performing for people.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We were probably approached by virtually every major label on some level. Some of which were like, you know, just someone saying like, hey, can we have lunch? And us saying, hey, no, or, you know, or, I mean, never rudely, but it's like there's just nothing to talk about, you know.
The corporations or big money gigs always somehow knew instinctively not to approach me. So it wasn't as if I had to necessarily refuse. I was never drawn to it, and they were never drawn to me. I think my reputation preceded me from 1977 on. It could have been because I think one time when a record company tried to not pay me, I threatened to throw first their stereo and then them out the window, and I was quite serious.
And we did turn out one relatively explicit buyout offer, which would have meant a lot of money and so on. And I don't object to that, and I'm not all that anti-commercial. I just decided that that the right way to do this was as a labor of love, and just to keep plugging away. Now we're doing okay, even despite the downturn, and I'm just glad we did it this way.
I'm not really driven by money. Money is like the last thing that I think about when I'm writing. I've never written thinking like, you know, oh, this will make me a bunch of money. If I was thinking about money, you know, I'd be writing cartoons instead of, you know, writing about straight males and gay bars, you know, strippers, and you know what I mean. I don't think I write the kind of stuff that's heavily commercial at all.
I've had to call my own press. I've had to book my own stuff. We don't have a record company, and I want to keep it that way.
But there was also times where we were offered really, you know, ridiculous amounts of money, absurd amount of money, because they were trying to get our attention, like, you know, because they were saying like, we should talk about it because, you know, we'd like to do, you know, we're talking about $1 million deal here or something, you know, and you're like, what is, but the thing is like, what they didn't take into account was that I'm coming from, you know, the early 80s. Like, for me, it was no fucking joke. It was like, this is like, it isn't a radical point of view. And I feel like that what we created was something like, when I don't mean we, the band, or we, the label, or even we, Washington, D.C., I'm talking about we, like, all these people, all these kids and young people all around the United States who were like, who created this network, you know, we made something that was like in spite of major label. It was a parallel community. It was legitimate, authentic music that didn't have to deal with all that nonsense. And this was not something that was for sale.
you can't really do the things you want to do or the way you want to do things if you have to actually make art or do anything for somebody else, or if you're being paid to do it for somebody else. That means that you're doing it for them, and you're actually not purely doing the art how you express it or how you want to do it.
I just reached a point where I had to put everything I had into it and try to make it work for me, because I knew that I really wouldn't be happy doing anything else. And I used to show my work in other galleries in Washington, D.C. and New Orleans, but I got sick of dealing with somebody in the middle to sell my work, so that's why I opened up my own gallery.
Major labels in general, they've really succeeded in their war. They've totally corporatized punk rock and revolution.
Because the major labels are so corrupt and obviously just in the way of the whole thing. I mean, the distribution channel's gone. You know, there is no distribution channel anymore. It's all bytes, and there's no need to push around a little silver disc anymore. It's not necessary.
At this point in my life, I prefer not to be on one, but if I were, it would be under certain terms which they seldom agree to, especially an artist on my level.
But besides that, major labels are not interesting. It's boring. You know, it's like that, to me, like most major labels, music is just not that interesting.
What would those terms be?
Yeah, what would those terms be?
That they at least use a little lube before I give them the privilege of fucking me.
It's usually when something doesn't, you get to a stage and then somebody asks you to do something that feels, weird, or, just as far as writing songs that might have swear words in them, even just, well, if you take this out, then you can get radio play.
There's a song on it called Baby Dick Fucking. Warner Brothers asked us, they told us basically, if you don't take this song off, we're not going to do this record. And we thought, and we did, I'm not going to say we just said, we considered it seriously. And then we told them no. We're like, we're not taking it off. Fuck you.
Truth has never been a popular commodity. It will never sell records or books. So therefore, it's not even a question of selling out or finding a corporate sponsorship. They do not desire me, and I do not desire them.
I look at each interview as equally important, whether it's for a zine or a Rolling Stone. It's like, zines are more important than Rolling Stone in some ways. Rolling Stone reaches more people, maybe, but because of the DIY thing, zines are more important to a lot of us.
Not really saying you're better or worse. You get a kink in your neck looking up at people or looking down at people, but if you look right across your shoulder, at your peers, there's no kinks. And this is part of Jam Mecano, doing what it takes for you to try to realize your expression. And not getting caught up in all these side issues, how to adjust the tiara on your prince's head, and this stuff, That's fine for other folks, but I think that gets in the way of trying to say what I want to say. I like what John Coltrane said about music. Somebody asked him, what are you trying to do with your music? He says, I'm just trying to uplift people.
And he goes, I work for this liquor company, and we'd love to use your stuff to do this bar promotion. And that's like, well, he basically remembers my strip was about drinking and a lot of drinking and stuff like that and partying back in college. It's vastly changed now. And I said, well, I don't really, I guess I talk about drugs and stuff a little bit and drinking, but mostly I deal with a lot of different issues. And he's like, well, what do you mean? And I was like, issues of race and some politics and different things like that. And he's like, oh, race, well, that's cool, man, because, this liquor is going to be marketed towards black people, so.
circus. Of course it's a sellout. Like I was telling you earlier, I wouldn't be doing historical justice to my ancestry if I didn't lie, cheat, steal, and embellish liberally.
I think most writers are much more into people reading what they've written than they are about making a zillion dollars. And so, you know, the more people are like, the more people that read my stuff, I'm happiest when more people are reading it. It's bad enough that we're so fucked up to begin with, but then to cry when the words aren't coming fast enough because you've exhausted that memory of your ex-girlfriend, your dead mother, your fucked up friends. You don't really worry about your job and the money. Always the money. Where's the fucking money?
I was just like, you don't understand. And I just said, I'm not going to do it. And I didn't even get into it really with him. I didn't want to continue the conversation. I didn't want to hear how much money they'd be offering or anything, because it doesn't really matter. Because in the end, you gotta sleep at night, and whether it's on a nice, cushy, squishy bed or a little futon, you still gotta sleep at night. I ain't gonna sleep any better on either type of thing.
It's not like it is in the books. I mean, it's not. Me and Mark make barely enough to eat and survive right now, even though we pay this with this overhead that we're all in the studio. It comes in waves. Sometimes we sell a bunch of paintings. Sometimes, you know, you try to wonder why you're doing it financially. But it's fun. It's fun to make your own artwork. You feel good at the end of the day. You broke a lot.
I only think about money when I'm at my last dollar. You know, and I think, fuck, man, poor again. I don't get it. How did I keep getting so poor? And then I try to come up with a way. And then once I have a few bucks put away, then all of a sudden I'm not thinking about it at all. You know, which I think at some point is going to lead me to abject poverty.
Why do you sell your records so cheap? Well, first off, it's sort of real economy. We don't, since the label doesn't actually act like most labels, and we're not bothered by the kind of structure that most entertainment labels use, which is largely legally based, like a lot of copyright stuff. We don't have contracts. We don't have lawyers. We don't hire out press agents. We just don't take in all the mess. It's very simple, like what we do. So therefore, we know what the real economy is, like what we spend on a project, and then how much we can sell it for to make that money back, and then make enough money for the artists, whatever, for everything to continue on.
Do you record your own stuff ever?
Yeah.
Yeah? Produce it and record it at home?
Yeah.
Why do you do that as opposed to paying lots of money and going to a studio and having someone else do it and having it maybe sound, you know, a little bit better and cost a lot more?
Exactly.
Dealing with agents or whatever, managers or whatever the hell, I can easily trust myself, or you know, I don't know where people's intentions are, you know, in the long run with big business. I've been from the music industry. Now I'm finding out the art industry is exactly just as evil as the music industry.
I suppose that's why I've always tried to do things myself, and it's really hard to do because it costs a lot of money, and so I try to live my life as inexpensively as possible so that I can actually save money to, you know, publish my own books or my own postcards or whatever.
So I think that from our point of view, on the one hand, it's based on a real economy. The second half of that equation is that I buy records, and I'd rather buy a record for $10 than $15.
What do you think of Napster?
I think it benefits artists on a smaller level, and maybe not the ones who are already millionaires.
That's good.
But I mean, hey, I think that the people who aren't millionaires deserve to benefit more than the people who are at this point from it. So
there's many schools of thought, and the people that really sort of stand up and are vocal about it are the ones saying, look, it only helps promote you and blah, blah, blah. But I think that there's a whole huge school of thought that just think that they shouldn't have to pay for music, and I think that that's bullshit.
And as the bandwidth increases and we can get CD quality digital music as fast as movies as fast as we get MP3s, then the crucial issue is going to be figuring out how to compensate people fairly for their art and cutting out the middlemen who really have no purpose anymore.
I had to publish my own stuff, so I started publishing zines, and I started leaving them for free in different comic book stores around the city. And this one guy said, "Hey man, don't leave them for free. You gotta sell them for something. Sell them for $1 or whatever, because people don't value. If they get something for free, they're just gonna toss it out. And if people have paid for something, value something, then they'll hold on to it and they'll treat it a little more respectfully, I guess."
It's a real finesse kind of a deal, compelling people to plan an evening, buy a ticket, get in their car, and go see something their better nature tells them they shouldn't see.
All right, down my head. It's the lowest form of entertainment. Tell your friends, thank you for coming. Get the fuck off my head.
I'll shoot a band for $200 or a friend for $200 just for some cash, like instant cash. But then if a band from a record company comes to me and says, "We need some photographs," I'm gonna charge them a fortune.
Because, I would sit in the studio and stare out the window, and sit on the couch and think, wow, it's costing me $1,000 to stare out the window. Somehow I would be paralyzed in that position, just thinking that, and the day would go by and I'd leave. And there was $1,000 out the window, and I figured I could do that at home.
And doing it myself with no agent or anything means I'm just basically doing it, a lot of hustling, like running around town, like right now in this taxi cab, going to this recording studio right now, and to hang some artwork there, and then I have to run to Trash and Roger with the clothing store to try to peddle my t-shirts onto them, so it's just basically just trying to scrambling for money.
But I'm so highly organized and structured, and have kept my overhead so low, and have been able to find outlets, but I have to live my life 6 months in advance in order to support myself. And most people can't do that. That's very frustrating, because you feel as if you're trapped by time almost, because you have to know what's going to happen, because otherwise you might have to get a day job, and that's just anathema to my nature.
I haven't had a job this time for about 6 months, and I'm gonna see if I can just never, ever have a day job ever again, because I hate working.
He wants to know what I do for the company, what I think of the new product, how much my stock options are worth. I tell him the truth. This is sort of weird, I say, but I'm supposed to be here to read poetry?
No matter what happens, I'll never get more than minimum wage, because there's so many hours to account for before I can pass that mark. So certainly I think anybody that writes for money, probably the same with music, it's just a fool.
Why don't you have an agent?
10%. Why don't I have a manager? 15%. Why don't I have a publicist? $5,000 a month.
What would you be doing if you weren't doing this?
I'd be a publicist.
I don't consider what I do art because it encompasses so many fields. I really think I'm more of a journalist, no matter what format my creativity takes. I think that I'm documenting the truth, whether it's through music, photography, video, spoken word, illustrated word, written word. The art of it is in surviving as an independent creator.
I've never thought, for instance, that anything I've ever done was anything but a success. Because if I actually did it, like if I actually got together with someone and played, it was an incredible success, And if I wrote a song, it was an incredible success. I never thought there's like a line, well, if I reach this line, then I would be successful. I've been successful since the beginning. I think everyone is. I think it's just been an illusion that we're not, you know.
Why do you do it yourself?
Well, the main reason is to make sure it gets done. And then later on, I guess you fall in love with it. And you come up with a lot of reasons why it's the right way. And you figure out that everybody has a different path, and maybe your path is this way. And the more things you can do to it, one really helps. Like this whole truck. This truck really helps to get the word out about the band. And in the daytime, I move furniture.
An artist, an American artist, West Coast artist, female artist, queer artist, living artist.
Great American, living, queer, West Coast, female artist.
Yeah.
I don't really consider myself to be someone who does art. I feel more like I'm someone who takes photographs and shows those photographs in art galleries. I used to think I was an artist, but the definition of what's an artist is now kind of cloudy to me.
You know, basically someone who uses the internet and computers to again, to glorify the individual and to fight things like, you know, corporate hypocrisy and all that crap. That's what I think of. It's definitely a DIY sort of, you know, ethic, if that's what you want to call it. It's empowerment, and it's realizing that the tools are there for anybody if you just learn to use them.
I don't think of myself, oh, I'm a woman artist and I really am trying to speak to women or not speak to women. Nothing like that. It's really, I'm just a human being. I'm just a soul.
As you get older, I think the growing up process is all about finding your spirituality. I think you can't actually grow up at all. Like, I really want to grow up, you know, but, you know, there's a certain amount you have to do and to become one with the earth and your planet and, you know, and your fellow human being, you know, to not fuck each other over. And I think the only way to really do that on a really consistent, like compassionate and like really selfless level is through spirituality, you know, finding what your spirituality is and like letting go of a lot of, you know, everyday anger and frustration and just, you know, maybe even praying a little bit. Dare I say that?
Do you think there's a spirituality in punk rock?
Definitely. Well, there is now. I think, you know, there's been phases of it where it's just like, let's just get fucked up, let's do a lot of speed, drink a lot of beer, and, you know, have a lot of perv sex. And that was punk rock for a while. Fashion. Let's like shock people with our outlandish piercings. But yeah, I just think people are more, let's use punk like people used to use folk music to move people, to change things.
Well, my spirituality is anal. My personality is introverted, and my sexuality is muted.
What is your name, Matt, and do you consent to be filmed?
Yeah, my name's Matt Inger.
And you consent?
Mark's brother. I'm Mark's older brother.
Older by how long?
2 minutes.
So does that mean you win the arguments because you're older?
No.
No.
I just had to brave the world first.
You guys fight?
Huh? Yeah, every day. All the time.
You love each other?
Yeah.
What's it like being partners with your brother?
It's beautiful. It's the most beautiful thing in the world, and it's the most horrible thing in the world. Because it's like you're married to him and you can't get a divorce. We both know exactly what to say to cut the other one to shreds with our mouths. we're good at sparring with each other, and you got to be careful in your personal life that you don't talk to like your girlfriend or something like that, because I could send my girlfriend into a total freak out with just a few words because I'm used to fighting with him.
Do you ever fist fight with him?
Yeah, all the time, but I'm not proud of it, but sometimes you have to.
Who wins?
Nobody.
Well, I have great friends, and I have the ability to make music, to create music, to write music, and I have a great family. So people, knowing good people is a great thing. I feel rich in that regard. And the fact that I'm fortunate enough to be allowed to play music. You know. So really, that's most of what I need.
It's never been an issue of like, well, time for us to get real. They've always been real. That's the problem with American society. Everyone says like, well, it's time to get real. Fuck that. You're real from the beginning, so get with it.
I like being on stage, and I like touring, and I like being in the studio. I love writing songs or playing for my friends at a party, because it's music, and it is truly the most wonderful thing there is. That is, of course, my opinion, which matters more than most people's.
What's your book about?
About a speed freak bike messenger in love with a stripper and her road to enlightenment.
Well, I'm sure that's a stretch for you.
Yeah, it was. I made it up.
Oh, I was supposed to say, most men seem to think, most men either seek war, sex, money, fame, or some combination of these four. I make my living documenting sex and providing sexual fantasies for people, but I don't think of myself as a big sex maniac.
Sometimes I dress just in like lingerie and high heels or something like that, and you know, sometimes I feel more introspective, and it's not always so crazy. It's not always so involving. So, but I just want to be true to the mood I'm in. It's just about being true to what mood you're in. You know, being honest with who you are, and so.
Would I kill for my art? Probably.
We're all victims of whatever circumstance, whether it's religious indoctrination, classist structure, the family structure, which is the microcosm of a fascist organization, being bullied, being a freak. I mean, we're all on this planet now, on this planet forever, in one way or another. We have been victimized, unless we're that very small elite cult of people that have born blessed.
But in this country, you can never have enough bombs. You can never have enough money. You can never be tall enough, blonde enough, white enough, rich enough, or Republican enough to suit their tastes.
Criticism sucks. I mean, well, I think artists deal with criticism differently. It depends a lot on if they're doing it because they care about their art, or if they're doing it because they're trying to prove something to somebody or to themselves.
The first question I ask is, where's the criticism coming from? I mean, who is it coming from? Where is it coming from? If it's mean-spirited, mean-spirited criticism is just worthless. It's just somebody else putting you down for trying something.
I tried to take a music class in 7th grade. He put me on the clarinet, and after 10 weeks, his name was Mr. Loon. He says, "Watt, you try hard, but you just don't have it."
Then when I first saw Hendrix or you know, movies or whatever, and listened to Hendrix or the Beatles, I thought like, God, I'd love to be in a band, but it was obviously completely out of my reach. It was for professionals, really. It wasn't something that I would be able to do, because I couldn't play guitar. You know, I was not trained. And besides that, anyone who grew up in the 70s knew that like there was like this like rock and roll was like, you know, it was like a gallery of like princes and princesses. It was like royalty. Like nope, like how, you know, you had to be anointed by God to play music.
Like you've got to be born with this talent.
Yeah, or you just know somebody and you got in the band, you know, as an assistant hair tech or something. This is just jive. And I think music's for bringing people in, not shoving people out. It's the way I look at it.
The money is starting to come in, but it's a struggle, you know, it's always a struggle. And I'm fine with it because, you know, I grew up in the Lower East Side. It was always a struggle, you know, and, you know, we grew up really poor. So now, you know, doing this is a great way for me to show myself that, yeah, I can fucking make it on my own.
Especially in Manhattan in the art world, even if they know you personally, they could have known you for years, but they don't really like your work or you until they hear it from somebody else that they respect.
And I also hate being thought, you know, or being accused of being an imitation of the people who imitated me in the first place.
I was recently took a visit to Tower Books and just looking for some magazines, just, you know, maybe for some source material. And I was like looking at the stands, and 3 magazines popped to my eye, and those were all 3 magazines that like had my name on the cover on, with huge features in, which was really, of course, exciting. But at the same time, as I picked them up and were about to take them to the counter, I realized I only had $3 in my pocket.
I haven't paid rent in 2 months, and they're going to shut the power off, and the phone gets shut off all the time. And you know, I know everybody down at PG&E in the phone company. I know all the girls, how to talk to them, and and all the stories, and just to make it stretch.
Eviction. We lost our practice space, my band did, and now I'm fighting an owner move-in eviction.
I can't tell you how many illegal owner move-ins I was a part of that really pissed me off.
I think we just have to be very wary of how our time is stolen from us. And I could have not created the body of work that I have at this age, at this stage of my life, if I had let the internet and television and bars and rock concerts that ultimately enriched me in no way take my time. There's no way I could have created. It's not as if work is the only thing I live for, because it certainly isn't. And I need outside experiences, and I constantly want to know what's going on and what people are doing. However, you just have to be cautious. Everything there, so much exists in order to steal your energy and your time, and I won't have it.
In the big scheme of things, when stuff gets really rough and horrible in your life, it's like the one thing you can do is you can produce art. And the worst times in your life are you can produce some of the greatest art, and it's just something that you can return to and be proud of if you look at some of the work that you've done during some of the bad times.
Maybe right now we could be on the verge of the next great explosion in underground and independent music, because if you look at the history of it, the height of the Cold War, Eisenhower years is when you saw the emergence of rock and roll, and then in the turbulence of the 60s you saw the hippie movement, and then at the height of the recession and economic upheaval in America and Britain, you saw the emergence of punk, and then in the Reagan years you saw all the American hardcore and indie stuff really take off. And for the last 10 years, through the 90s, there was nothing really happening because people were prosperous, people were happy, they were fat, they were sitting in front of their computers and they're making money, and so they're not going out to see music, and they're not really angry with anything. They want to keep the status quo and keep what they've got. And now the economy's unraveling and there is tension in the air, and people realize, you know what, we've got to get out there and say something. We have to do something with our lives. We need to create and make that creation meaningful.
What advice do you have for kids coming up today that want to do it themselves?
Well, it takes a while.
Learn how to make something that you think is good, despite what everybody else thinks.
So just give yourself some time to find out who you are and who you want to show the world who you are.
If they are somebody that really doesn't have a choice but to keep doing this thing they love to do, like they didn't choose it, it chose them, even though that sounds kind of corny, but that's actually how it happens a lot, I think, then just be prepared for a lot of work and probably a lot of rejection and probably not so much success. But if you need to do it, then the ends justifies the means anyway, so you'll be all right.
Just do it any way possible. I don't care if you have to steal the materials. Just do it and keep improving on your skill factor. Make it the finest and hardest thing to do is just keep up a level of skill that's just unmatchable. Even the way you wrap the canvas, everything really well packaged, put together, whatever that package is, come up with a format, come up with your images, and just keep developing those images. They'll naturally develop into your own visual language if you just keep doing it long enough. Don't get too discouraged, man, because I've been living in rat dens for about 15 years. Just now getting my head above water.
And like I said, never lose touch with what you just want to create for yourself. But the whole like falling into like, maybe I'll get signed, maybe I'll get chosen, da da da. I mean, that's so easy to lose your own personal vision in that. And if you're waiting for the validation of that external stamp to hit your forehead, I mean, you either get a short-lived ego blast or a long-lived ego blast that will end.
The only specific advice I'd ever have would be to say, just do whatever you do because you love it. That way, if in the future it doesn't turn into like selling tens of thousands of records, or it wasn't the most beautiful painting or the most incredible sculpture or whatever, at least you enjoyed yourself while you were doing it, and you were doing something that you loved.
My only advice for up-and-coming photographers has always been and always will be to get a model release from the people you're shooting. You never know when you're going to be able to use that work for something, you know, off in the distant future. I can tell you I had a really hard time collecting model releases for stuff I did in the 80s. I had to collect them in the early 90s. It was difficult.
I warn people of the world where they're just waiting for someone to pick them.
You don't do it for money. You don't do it for pleasure either. I don't know why you do it. You just do it because you have to do it.
You have to do it.
You just fucking do it, man. You know, and everybody I've ever worked with, you know, I've paddled some bands through the lowest ebbs of their careers. You know, where's the drummer? He's dead. Just keep rowing. Just keep rowing. You know, whoa, we lost another one. Just don't. Just keep going. At least they brought their own weed. They seem cool. We'll let them on the boat. Oh, we gotta lose them. Bam! You know, you just keep doing it. You just keep doing it. You're just steering. You don't know where you're going, and you're on the road less fucking traveled, man. You know, just keep going forward. You know.
So I think anybody who likes to play music should just do it regardless. Quit your job, run away, join the circus, be a musician, and live on the street. Oh shit, that's right. This is a mandolin. Can't use that part. I hit a wrong note.
Because a lot of people say, wow, I don't believe you're able to exist just doing your art, and that's what you gotta stop and think about and be happy about, because there's a lot of people that say they used to do, oh, I used to draw. That kills me more than anything else, is people sit there and say, oh, I used to do this or I used to do that. It's, why don't you do it anymore? Oh, there's no money in it. And is that the priority? Is really that the priority? I mean, that if it made you happy, then that's better than anything else.
And I suggest that anyone taking photographs of someone always pays the people, even if it's $1. So you don't come back down the line. They don't come back down the line and say, "You're making money off me. Where's my cut?"
The main thing is about the rider, really. That's what I've learned about being an independent artist. When you really graduate, you get to ask for things like towels.
You have to make it happen. You can't wait for like some hand to come out of the sky and say, here's a really cool gig, here's a really cool opportunity, here's, you know, you gotta take what you get and try and make it sensational. Okay, now take a big breath. Because I really want to hear it. I really want to hear what you think of a 50 guitar orchestra! Okay, let's hear from the Dinosaur, everybody!
Do it yourself. And don't wait for a trust fund or a grant or think anyone's going to come and help you. But buck up your resources, get a job if you have to, find a way to gather the money, and just do it. It's not that difficult. You have to just have the will to do it. There's no secret. There's no mystery as to how you create, as to how you produce, as to how you collaborate. The thing is to have the balls to just decide, I'm going to do it, and do it. I can't imagine not doing it myself.
It doesn't matter if nobody gets it, because most of the things that turned out the best had a period where nobody understood it. And how would they? Because you're doing something that's new. So you have to, if you believe in what you're doing, just keep it up, be good at it. Don't get lazy with it, just follow through. If no one ever knows who you are, at least you knew who you were.
D.I.Y or die, D.I.Y or die, D.I.Y or die, D.I.Y or die, D.I.Y. D.I.Y. D.I.Y or die, D.I.Y or die, D.I.Y or die, D.I.Y or die, D.I.Y. D.I.Y. D.I.Y or die, D.I.Y or die, D.I.Y or die, D.I.Y or die, D.I.Y. 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 D.I.Y.
I'll do I like that. Take. I'll do a second take. Keep that.
It's like, if you know, for me, like, I don't actually have any kind of real like art outside of, I don't even have a hobby really outside of music. You know, I don't have hobbies. All I do is just be me. That's basically what I do. But I will play piano on my own. You know, I'll fool around, and I think probably in the world of competitive piano playing that I would probably come in very close to last. And but luckily, I don't actually exist in that world. I just love to play piano, and I can never fail.